Oh yeah, you all know what time it is. It is time for another episode of Is This Legal? This is Colin McCallin, and right next door to me is my partner in crime, Russell Hebets. How you doing, Russ?
I'm doing well. Hello, everybody out there.
So, we're in the dog days of summer here. I hope everybody is enjoying their summer. Russ, a lot of good blockbuster movies out there. Have you seen The Odyssey yet?
Summer movie season, I have. I went with my family and saw The Odyssey. Highly recommended.
What's your official rating? 1 to 10.
I mean, it's like a 9.5, maybe even a 10. It was
Wow.
It was outstanding.
Wow.
The acting was outstanding. The cinematography was outstanding. The story's great. I've read have you ever read The Odyssey?
In college I did, and I vaguely remember it.
So it generally sticks with it, but it's not super married to the book.
Well, of course, it's Hollywood, right? We
You gotta jazz
be
it up
too
a
close to
little.
the actual work of art, right?
Yeah, but it's really well done. Like, director Christopher Nolan did a great job. Everyone should go out there and see it.
You'd be proud of me. I watched a horror movie recently. I just saw this movie that the kids are all talking about, Obsession. OMG.
I mean, that
good
is
stuff.
Unusual.
Yeah, I like reading synopses of
Right.
horror stories and not
Right.
watching them because I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat.
Yeah, you're a big chicken, not a little one.
I dove right into the horror pool, and I'm glad I did. That was a good movie. So there you go. There's a couple of movie recommendations
All right.
for you, Odyssey and Obsession. So let's get to the meat of what we're going to be talking about today, though, because we're not movie critics here. This isn't Siskel and Ebert.
No.
This is Hebets McCallin, and what we do is we talk about crime.
Yeah.
And today we are going to talk about Tony Romo. Tony Romo is a pretty household name at this point. He was the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys for years and years, pretty successful career.
Yep.
And since his retirement, he is basically the #1 color guy for CBS commentary for NFL games.
Right.
So he's alongside Jim Nantz doing play-by-play, makes millions of dollars a year, pretty likable guy. Well, he's found himself on the wrong end of the law, Russ, because a few days ago he was arrested and he's been charged, not convicted, this is a pending case, for OWI, which is a charge out of Wisconsin, which is a acronym for what, Russ?
Operating while intoxicated.
That's correct.
Or impaired.
Exactly.
It's the equivalent of DUI in
Right.
most states, or DWI
Yeah.
in most states.
Yeah,
So,
alcohol-related driving.
alcohol-related driving.
And Russ and I do a lot of that work, and so we thought, wow, well, we can definitely talk about this. I mean,
Plus we watch football.
exactly.
Yeah,
We
so-
watch football. We
know who Tony Romo is.
Yeah, and we know about DUI cases, so like that makes us experts on all things Tony Romo and DUI cases, right? So we're going to give you our 2 cents. In fact, maybe a little bit more than just 2 cents on this thing. So we have here's where we are. This is days old. This is a pretty new arrest. I think this happened like a week and a half ago or something like that. He hasn't even had his first court date. This is a misdemeanor offense, but we do have body cam footage because the arresting agency who pulled him over in Wisconsin has released the body cam footage. So we basically know what evidence the prosecutor is going to be able to work with in establishing whether or not they can convict Tony Romo of OWI.
Yeah, it's really rare for the full body cam to be released like this while the case is pending. But this is from Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it was a Freedom of Information request from the press or if they typically do this, but they released, basically you can go find the full there's some redactions, but basically the full body cam from the arresting officer, from the charging officer, from the stopping officer, basically from start to finish for the investigation. So it gives us a lot of insight into what they have, and we're going to be able to talk about what the strengths of the case are and what the defenses are, because spoiler alert, there's some pretty good defenses for old Tony.
There really are. This is a super interesting case, and I think a conviction here might be elusive. But we'll save that for predictions.
Yeah.
So let's get into what we have. So the body-worn camera that's been made available, it's a little over an hour in length. There's been some edits made, but it looks like we have the raw camera footage from the officers involved. And there's really 2 locations where the filming took place. There's the filming right where Tony Romo is pulled over on the side of the highway, where we see the initial interaction of the officer with Mr. Romo, where she allegedly develops her probable cause to eventually arrest him. And
she
then,
being the sheriff.
Yeah, she being the sheriff. And then we see him later at a separate location at a detention facility where after he has been handcuffed and transported to this area, they have him do standard field sobriety tests. So we have footage from that location too. We're going to keep things chronological, and we're basically going to start with the initial contact and kind of what went down from here. We're not going to play clips or anything like that. The footage is widely available.
Right.
We're just going to kind of summarize what we saw, and we're going to talk about things that we see and things that we don't see that are going to be material for a DUI case. So Russ, I'm going to turn it over to you. Why don't you describe the initial conversation between the officer and Tony Romo right after he's pulled over?
Yeah, so we don't have video. We don't have dash cam video showing the actual stop.
Right.
Okay. So, but the stop was apparently for him passing on the right and a gore point violation. Now, everyone out there, you may be thinking, what the heck is a gore?
Right.
What's a gore point violation?
Right.
Right? Because the vast majority of lay people don't know what this is. Every cop knows what it is.
Right.
So this is when you have like an entrance ramp onto a highway. You have the entrance ramp coming in at a curve, and it's joining a lane of traffic on the highway. That is a solid white line, and then another solid white line for the highway coming to a point.
Coming to like a triangle.
Shape. The
triangle shape is the gore line.
That is the gore.
Right.
The gore itself.
Yeah.
Right. And so what the cop's saying is, he went over that, and anyone who has merged on a highway, like, you probably at some point have gone over a gore point.
Right.
Because if there's an opening to your left, like, get into that spot, right? And this is rush hour traffic in Milwaukee. So it's a gore violation, and then he apparently passed on the right. So she's basically saying he was driving carelessly, although I don't think he's charged with careless driving.
Right.
So that's the reason for the stop.
Yeah, notable. She didn't specifically say like he was weaving all over the road.
Nope.
He was not in an accident. He didn't sideswipe a curb. He wasn't driving too slow.
Wasn't speeding.
I'm mentioning these things because these are common reasons that people who are impaired get pulled over.
Right.
And I think these violations are on what I would call the relatively benign side, or not that big of a deal side.
Yeah.
So anyway, but let's continue. So we don't know if we really have any bad driving. We also don't know if we have dash cam footage. So we'll reserve that for later.
Yeah. So assuming that, it was fine, the stop.
Yeah.
So she goes up to his window and she makes contact with him. Right. And it's really...
Well, before that, really quickly, remember she addresses him on the loudspeaker before she makes contact with him. Apparently he's not pulled over all the way to the right. And you can hear her kind of, I would say rudely.
Was she uppity?
Kind of demanding, get over to the right. I mean, I think you could argue that she went into this contact with a little bit of an abrasive tone. That's all I'll say. But she seemed like she was, I don't know, not totally friendly.
Yeah, okay. I mean, on the other side, you have to have people respect you if you're law enforcement,
yes.
Right? You have to take control of the situation.
Right.
So she gets him over, he pulls over, she walks up to the window. It's really interesting and important to note it was very windy.
Right, and that means it's kind of hard to hear.
Kind of hard to hear, so they're having trouble hearing each other, and they both admit to that. They both say, we're basically having to yell at each other here.
Well, and initially, the first words out of Tony Romo's mouth, he actually speaks first before the officer gets there. He says, was that you on the loudspeaker? He's like, I couldn't hear. I think you said, pull over to the right. That's what I did. Russ, I think that's really important, because that to me shows some evidence of sobriety on Tony Romo's part. If we're trying to assess whether he was intoxicated or not, he's alert enough to know, okay, you were telling me to signal over to the right, that's what I did, I followed your instructions. Just an observation about that.
Okay, so it's windy. He says, hey, was that you on the loudspeaker? The wind for me is important, because for anyone who's ever been outside, when it's windy, it is difficult to smell things. Scents, odors get taken away with the wind.
And what are you getting at here, Russ?
I'm getting at the fact that she says there was a strong odor of alcohol that she smelled coming from Tony Romo's person.
Right.
that, for how windy it was, like you can tell it's windy. You can see the wind. It is a strong wind. So that for me says, I'm having a hard time believing that she could smell a strong odor of alcohol. Now maybe she's saying it was so strong it overcame the wind, and that's how overpowering it was. But that doesn't really correspond with his mannerisms.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And the odor of alcohol in and of itself also is fairly limited information, right? It doesn't tell you what a person drank. It doesn't tell you when a person drank. It doesn't tell you how much they were drinking.
Right.
You know, so it's some evidence. I'm not discounting it. But to your point, you got a windy day. And again, you don't, one thing that I think is going to be fairly objective, well, I guess fairly obvious in this case, this is not a person who appears, to me at least, to be overly intoxicated. This is not a person who's falling down drunk. It's not a person who can't stand up, who is just speaking gibberish because they have no idea what's going on.
Right.
You know, if anything, even at best, if you're a prosecutor, this case is a close call, I think. And that matters because these little subtle things, are they enough to even get to probable cause to make an arrest?
So that's interesting, because here's what she has after that initial conversation. She has an odor. She says he has bloodshot, watery, and glassy eyes, which you can't really tell from the body cam.
Yeah, you can see his eyes. Honestly, I didn't think they were that bloodshot, but you can't see him.
You can't see him well enough, right? Yeah. And you know what she has. Where are you coming from today, sir? Well, I'm coming from the golf course.
She chippered right up when he made that statement.
Oh yeah.
And on a couple of separate occasions on her body cam, she said that statement, "I was just coming from the golf course," is attributable to probable cause for drunk driving.
Right.
She even told him that later when he was being arrested. Well, I've got you saying that you came from a golf course. So Russ, I guess when you go play a round of golf with your buddies, you should assume that you're going to get pulled over for drunk driving, apparently, because you must have been drinking if you came from the golf course, according to this officer.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
And Tony basically pushes back on that right away. He's like, "What? Just because came from a golf course, you think I was drinking?" And he denies drinking. To be like, from the start, he denies drinking. Yep. Right, but
how much alcohol have you had? Zero.
Was his response. Right. So we're talking about this probable cause standard. That is what you need to stop. You just need reasonable suspicion, right? And to start this investigation, before an officer arrests you, they have to have probable cause. They don't get to just arrest you based on reasonable suspicion, which is a low bar. Mm-hmm. Probable cause is higher, right? And so she needs to articulate what gives her probable cause to arrest him for DUI. And what does she do when she gets him? So far she has an odor, bloodshot, glossy eyes, and is driving. Right? That's what she has. She then asks him out of the car.
Yes, that's right.
How was his exit?
Well, first of all, he had an interesting exchange with her before getting out of the car.
Yeah.
He first of all has his cell phone in hand and he asks her, "May I speak with my lawyer? I want to call my lawyer."
Right.
Because she says, "I want to have you." Well, she first says, "I want to run you through fields."
Right.
And he says, "What does that mean?"
Right.
And she says, "Well, would you be willing to perform voluntary roadside maneuvers?" He then says, "I want to call my lawyer. I'd like to call my lawyer." And she says, "No, get out of the car." She orders him out of the car. He politely resists her on that and says, "Listen, I'd really like to call my lawyer. You're telling me I can't call my lawyer before doing this?" And she says, "No." Now, by the way, is she correct about that? Does he have a right to talk to a lawyer before doing roadsides, Russ?
At that point, he does not.
No.
So the officer's correct.
Yep.
He doesn't. You don't have a right to call your lawyer.
Right.
So she's correct on that. It almost starts to escalate there. She actually calls for backup, and she says something like, "He's refusing to exit."
Let's just spell this out for our listener, because I know listeners are out there saying, "Why doesn't he get to talk to his lawyer?" They're just saying he doesn't get to. Why not? Here's why. You do have a right to consult with an attorney prior to making incriminating statements.
Right.
Okay? So we know that through Miranda, which we're going to talk about, by the way, in just a few minutes in this case. But you do not have a right to consult with a lawyer regarding an investigation where they are not eliciting incriminating statements. So you don't get to talk to a lawyer before you are asked to do roadside maneuvers. You don't get to talk to a lawyer prior to taking a blood or a breath test.
Yeah. You don't get to basically, if the cops are investigating you, you don't get to say, hey, officer, pause your investigation. Yeah, I'm calling a timeout. Everyone stop what you're doing. I'm going to go make a call. It'll just be a few minutes, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay, everybody, freeze!
It's like freeze time.
Don't move. It's not like that.
Yeah.
You don't get to call a lawyer at the drop of a hat anytime you want to.
You don't get to dictate the investigation.
That's right.
Right?
Okay. So, just a quick point on that. That's something that he did not have a right to do, and the cop is right about that.
And ultimately, he agreed with her, and he got out.
Right. And he does get out. He's patted down for weapons.
Well, even before that, like, I'm getting nitpicky here, Colin, but as defense attorneys, what we're looking for is any signs of impairment at any stage. And that's frankly what cops are looking for too, right? And one of the things they're trained to look for is, how was the exit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? How did he appear when he got out? How is his balance when he was walking? How is his balance when he's standing? And, for all of these, like, Tony looked pretty solid.
Yeah, he exited his car fine. He wasn't leaning on his car for balance. He didn't fall over.
Right.
All things, like Russ said, that the cops are looking for. Let's on that note, let's go back even further. Let's talk about things that might be the things that people don't see that are also important. Okay. He was able to produce his driver's license and documents without any problem. There's no fumbling of his license. These are things that the cops are looking for. No slurred speech, Russ.
That's a big one.
We haven't talked about this one at all. In this interaction where he's with the cop, I'm sorry, objectively speaking, he is speaking normal.
Yeah.
And we actually know what Tony Romo sounds like when he talks because of,
every Sunday you can see him on the big screen. Right.
And he's talking like Tony Romo.
Right.
By the way, the entire interaction, he is very polite and respectful. He never name drops himself.
Right.
He never at any point says, "Oh, I'm Tony Romo, by the way. Let's go ahead and make this go away, you rookie cop." Doesn't pull any of that. Now, I will say this: in the video on the side of the road, to me, he looks a little lethargic. But as you mentioned, it's later in the day. I think it's like 5 o'clock in the evening, and he had been playing golf at a tournament. Right. So, that's not that big of a deal. And so there really is nothing that the cop sees leading up to this to show that he is under the influence of anything. By the way, he parked his vehicle correctly and safely on the side of the road. Right. He's not parked at an angle. She
had to get him on a loudspeaker.
Well, but he was able to follow her orders,
right.
Is what I would say to that.
Yeah.
And again, we don't have anything, any dash cam to show that he was driving other than carefully. So leading up to this, to kind of echo your point, they don't have a whole lot here.
Don't have a whole lot.
And it's at this point where they place him in custody.
Yeah.
And this is what the cop says, because this is very important. So she says, she turns him around, places handcuffs on him, and says, "I am detaining you for suspicion of OWI." And she then places him into the back of her patrol car. Now, Russ, if a person is in handcuffs, detained in the back of a patrol car, is that person in custody for purposes of the law?
That person is absolutely in custody. They are cuffed. They are in the back of a patrol car where they can't get out of. They're not free to leave, right? The question of custody is that person free to leave?
Right.
If you're free to leave, you're not in custody. If you're not free to leave, you are.
Right.
Even without the cuffs.
Right.
So clearly he's in custody.
He's not going anywhere. He can't leave anywhere. If he fled, he would be charged with, failure to obey lawful orders.
Yeah.
Or obstruction.
And so this is the key point in this interaction that we think has so many problems for the prosecution.
Yeah, if you've been ignoring us up to this point, go ahead and turn those ears back on, because this is the important thing. This is like the asterisk moment of the podcast.
Right. Here's what SFSTs, standard field sobriety tests, they are built to develop probable cause for arrest. That's the purpose of SFSTs. With them arresting him, ultimately arresting him, whether they call it arrest or not, taking him into custody and transporting him, They're doing that before they have any of that probable cause.
Right.
Which means the probable cause determination has to happen before that custody.
Right. Which means that you have to look at what happened right before those handcuffs got slapped on Tony Romo and decide, did the cops have enough? And what we're saying here is first of all, what the police do in most DUI investigations, certainly all DUI investigations that we've handled here in Colorado,
Right.
they will do the roadside testing prior to making the arrest decision.
Right.
Because that, like you just said, the performance on the roadside test goes to the very nature of whether they have probable cause to arrest the person in the first place. They didn't do that here, Russ.
Right.
They arrested him and then took him to do the roadsides later while he's in custody.
It's frankly, Colin, bass backwards.
Right.
So, I mean,
You're right.
like that is, because if they had done the roadsides at the side of the road, then they could say, hey, based on his performance, in addition to the odor and the bloodshot eyes and his driving behavior, now this is why we think we have probable cause to arrest him for DUI.
Right.
They don't have that in this case.
Exactly. The other issue that I see, remember we mentioned Miranda a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Again, because he's placed in custody with handcuffs and placed in the back of a patrol car, at that point he's in custody, and our seasoned listeners are going to know that if you are in custody and the police ask you questions or get you in any way to elicit incriminating responses about what you have done, that is a Miranda violation. They should have provided him a Miranda violation there on the side of the road right after they put the cuffs on him, because he was being interrogated at that point.
Right. Anything they ask him at that point that is at all designed to elicit an incriminating response is a Miranda, requires Miranda.
Right. Now, interestingly enough, if I'm representing Tony Romo, I'm probably going to take a really good look at whether or not I want to suppress anything Tony Romo says, because he didn't really incriminating himself other than his statement of coming from a golf course and heading to his parents. I mean, he really didn't say anything that directly implicated him in DUI. But what I am saying, it would have been much better police work for her to issue a Miranda warning right after she put the cuffs on him.
It would have.
And one more tiny note, I just want to say this. Just because a cop says you're not under formal arrest, I'm just detaining you. Russ, does that mean anything? Do those words have any bearing whatsoever on whether or not a person's been arrested?
No,
or not?
it's all about the actions.
Right.
Like that isn't some magical phrase that somehow takes away the custody that the person's clearly in.
This is what we see often from police officers who try to circumvent Miranda. What they say is, oh, no. Even though I've placed you in handcuffs, even though you're detained and can't leave, you're not under formal arrest yet. I'm still doing my investigation. And the reason they're saying that is so they don't have to tell the person their Miranda rights.
Right.
That's not the law.
Right.
If the person themselves, if the person in the defendant's shoes believes that their freedom is deprived such that they can't leave, that's going to be considered custody. Just a quick note there.
And so some of you may be out here thinking, well, you know what? She's got him smelling like alcohol, right? And red eyes. That should be enough that he's impaired. You know, what you want to think about, though, is anywhere in the country, it is not illegal. Even if he had been drinking, it is not illegal to drink and drive unless you're impaired.
Absolutely.
Right? So an odor, like we said earlier, odor doesn't tell you when, what, how much someone drank. And odor does not tell you that someone's impaired.
That's
right.
You
need more than just the odor.
Yeah, what Russ is saying is true across all 50 states. I can go out and have a glass of wine, maybe two, with my wife, go home and drive home. As long as I am not impaired to drive, none of that is illegal. Right. That's all fine. And so
you could have two. You're a big guy. Like if you're a 5'2", 100-pound woman, you probably want to stick to like one or less.
The point is, it's not illegal per se to drink and drive. And Russ's point is, the fact that he smelled like alcohol, therefore, is really evidence of not much.
Right.
So we have really, really thin evidence. And honestly, Russ and I are looking at this like, if we're stopping the tape at where Tony Romo gets arrested,
yeah,
I think probable cause is very, very thin. in this case.
I mean, super tenuous.
Yeah, and again, the cop put the cart before the horse by doing the roadside's post arrest. Let's talk about that now.
Yeah.
So Tony Romo gets transported, handcuffed the whole time to this substation.
Yeah.
And
to a Sally Port.
Yeah, to a Sally Port.
Named after Sally Jones, one of the first constables in New England.
we all know that in history class. I don't know why they didn't call it a Port Sally, but Sally Port. A Sally Port is basically like a big garage.
Yeah, it's a big garage outside of a police
law
station.
enforcement stations have them where, inmates
unload
get dropped
people.
off. Yeah, well,
Right.
So Tony Romo gets transported to this Sally Port. Russ, is it empty? Is anybody else there?
Well, turns out there's lots of other cops that are there.
Yeah.
So I counted, I think, 4 standing around.
Yeah, it seems like the word got out that, we've got Tony Romo in custody
Seems
here.
like that.
I don't think the female cop who had this initial interaction with him knew that it was Tony Romo, just based on how she interacted with him. I do think she knew absolutely who he was when she's back at the station, because she's doing everything off of like a note card.
Yeah.
She's making advisements, she's reading things, she's doing everything by the book. She sounds super nervous.
Yeah.
If I had to venture a guess, I'd say this was a newer cop for us. I
Right.
mean, she just kind of has a rookie feel to her. This is not a seasoned officer.
I agree.
I'll be surprised if I hear otherwise, but so now they're at this Sally Port, and she says, I would like you to do standard field sobriety tests.
Before that, she articulates the grounds that she has to this point.
That's right. Yeah.
And so it's the things we mentioned. You're driving.
You were at a golf course.
You're right. You were at a golf course was one. Okay, which again is not evidence of anything alcohol related. She also says, yeah, my partner, the backpack that you wanted from your car, my partner went and got that and went through it, and he found shooters in there. Okay, now Tony Romo says
that doesn't sound good.
Right, but Tony Romo immediately he's like, they weren't drank, right? You found
they weren't empty, right?
They weren't empty. You found unopened shooters, right? And that apparently
I don't think she said anything,
No,
but
she
she
didn't.
seemed to confirm with her silence that he's right about that.
Yeah, he's right about that.
So again, what evidence is that? You are allowed to transport alcohol in your car, and just because you have alcohol in your car, in and of itself does not mean that you are driving under the influence.
Right. You're allowed to go to the liquor store and buy a 6-pack and then drive home and safely consume it. And if you're driving home and a cop stops you, they don't get to say, you have an unopened 6-pack right there, I'm going to arrest you for DUI.
Right. Now, according to the police report, though, after he's been arrested, they do an inventory search of the car. They claim, don't they, that he had an alcohol container in the passenger seat?
I do not know. I didn't see that.
Okay, so we don't. That would have been something we don't have footage for, because that would have happened afterwards. So we'll see. Okay.
Yeah.
But again, it looks like what they did found was not evidence that he'd actually consumed alcohol.
Yeah, she's essentially using a bunch of facts that are not indicative of impairment or intoxication as evidence to further her investigation as evidence of impairment or intoxication.
All right, well, let's talk about, I think this is a good time for a break. Let's talk about how he did on the roadside maneuvers after we play a little Is This Legal? How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay, good listener, it is that time. Are you ready to play Is This Legal? Let's find out together, shall we?
Let's.
All right, we're going back to Northamptonshire. Let's see what Jebediah is up to today, Russ. All right, Jebediah's wagon wheel repair shop is not pulling in as many dollars as he would like. So, of course, he reverts back to selling some moonshine again. That's what he does.
That's his pattern.
Yep. Officer Cornelius gets tipped off about this and apprehends Jebediah during the middle of a moonshine exchange at the old hitching post. He arrests Jebediah and he puts him in his police-issued motor car. He then takes Jebediah's phone and keys for safekeeping and has those items with him up in the front seat of the car. Officer Cornelius does.
Okay.
So when en route to the Northamptonshire jail, Jebediah's phone lights up, Russ. And Officer Cornelius looks down at the phone, doesn't touch it, and sees a message that said, "Did you hide the guns?" And that's all it says. Cornelius then picks up the phone, which is unlocked. It doesn't require a passcode. And he starts scrolling through the messages, which show that Jebediah appeared to be involved in a stagecoach robbery a couple weeks earlier. Now, Cornelius charges Jebediah with the moonshine violation as well as the robbery, using the contents of the phone as the basis for the evidence. Now, Jebediah, he's not going to take this lying down. He calls his girlfriend and lawyer extraordinaire, Myrtle, to represent him, and represent him she does. She immediately gets the discovery and she files a motion to suppress any evidence obtained from the cell phone, claiming a Fourth Amendment violation. The prosecution, of course, objects and says this should go forward. The question, good listener, what should the justice of the peace do with Myrtle's motion? Should he grant the motion to suppress or deny the motion to suppress?
All right.
So
Fourth Amendment, obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, that protects each and every person in America from unreasonable searches and seizures.
I mean, again, we're dealing with some sort of time paradox in where we have cell phones with stagecoach robberies.
We have motor cars.
We do, right. I guess we do.
Yeah.
So you're saying we don't have a problem?
No paradox.
Okay, never mind. Everything's just totally fine here. We're ready to ship this off to Hollywood.
So it's interesting, but it's interesting that Cornelius didn't need to unlock the phone. He could just look at it.
That is interesting, isn't it?
And he had the phone presumably legally for safekeeping,
right,
incident to the arrest of Jebediah, right? He's not going to leave the phone on the side of the road.
Right, yeah, exactly.
All right, so what do you guys think out there? There's some little twists and turns with this one.
Well, let's go ahead and deliver the answer. Does Jebediah get off on this one, Russ, or is he going down?
Jebediah on this one gets off.
Yes, he does. Yes,
maybe,
he does.
Maybe not on the moonshine charge.
Right. Yeah, but I think he screwed on the moonshine charge.
But on the stagecoach robbery charge, Cornelius cannot go through the phone without a warrant.
Now wait just a minute, Russ. I was paying attention to the hypothetical very closely.
Good.
I may have written it, and I noticed that he didn't have to unlock the phone. He never even picked it up. How is that not a plain view exception? How does Officer Cornelius not have a plain view exception to the warrant requirement and say, look, I didn't search anything. This message popped up and it was fair game after that.
So that may be true for the message popping up, for the initial message, if he just looked at a phone and plain view saw a message. But once he started scrolling and going through prior texts, that is a search.
Bingo. And by the way, in this particular case, it does not matter that there was no passcode. What I never said in the hypothetical is that Jebediah provided consent for this search to take place. I said simply that Jebediah picked up the phone and started scrolling through it. You need a warrant before you can do that, my friend. Cornelius needed to go to a judge and say, Judge, I have a belief in probable cause that this guy has incriminating info on his phone. Here's why I think this. You needed a warrant. He didn't get a warrant. The Supreme Court of the Supreme Court of the United States, SCOTUS, in a 2014 opinion, Riley v. California, said that you need a warrant to search the digital contents of a cell phone. Justice Roberts wrote that opinion, and he basically said, look, these days, cell phones have so much personal information about our lives that we just can't allow law enforcement just to grab a phone and say, oh yeah, I'm going to look through this. So this goes away. Jebediah is off scot-free, and Officer Cornelius has to go back to the academy to learn some Fourth Amendment law.
Yep, that's it.
Back to our regularly scheduled programming. All right, right, welcome back to the show. Hope you had a good time playing Is This Legal? Russ, let's talk about the next phase of the investigation, which again happens after we say Tony Romo was arrested and taken into custody. He's transported and he does these field sobriety tests.
Yep.
Roadside maneuvers, rigged carnival games, whatever you want to call them. We're gonna talk about these things. Russ, what are the 3 standard field sobriety tests offered in every state in America?
Yep, so these were developed through NHTSA back in the 1980s, and they are: 1, horizontal gaze nystagmus. That is a test where the officer puts a stimulus across your face and watches how your eyes track that stimulus and is looking for tiny little bouncing of the eye at various points.
Yeah, I mean, Russ and I are very, very critical of this test. We think it's a joke. The idea behind it is that alcohol causes nystagmus, which is again a word that's a $6 word there that we're going to explain. It's the jerking of the eyes. Cops, when they testify in court, will often characterize it like a windshield wiper across glass that's not wet. Right. It kind of jerks across. It kind of jumps. It doesn't smoothly glide. That's what the eyeball does after a person has consumed alcohol. The problem is there's about 40 other causes for nystagmus that can trigger this reaction too. Right. That's why Russ and I think this is a very useless test, but nevertheless, it's one of the 3 standard SFSTs that cops use. And so tell us about the performance on this test, Russ.
So for that one, you can't see Tony's eyes, right?
Yeah.
So you can't make an internal observation of whether or not he had nystagmus or not. Right, so you have to just, I guess, take the officer's word for whether she saw that bouncing of the eye or not, because it's not high def. You can't zoom in and look and see his eyes.
Sometimes, by the way, we do get body cam footage that does have that little level of clarity, and it's awesome when you do. Right. When you have a cop who's testifying, oh yeah, this guy's eyeballs were jumping like frogs, right. But then you actually show the video and no, they were rolling like marbles smoothly.
Jumping like frogs. So that's
best case I had.
That's straight from one of Colin's recent cases that he won, by the way, where the DA said, "Look at the eyes, they're jumping like frogs." Like you've been watching this video and his eyes look totally normal. So,
right.
I mean, he didn't gain a lot of credibility there.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so you can't really see the eyes on this one, but what you can see is how she administers the test.
Yeah.
Because again, these are standardized, which means they have to be done in a very specific way every time. Mm-hmm. And that's how the studies were done to determine correlation to impairment.
Right.
And you can tell she does not do them as she should have been trained.
Right.
Okay. She's doing things like, first, Tony Romo's a pretty tall guy, right? He was an NFL quarterback.
The officer's very short.
Yeah, the officer is not terribly tall. So this test is supposed to be where you're standing in front of the person and you have the stimulus, which in this case was the tip of a pen, up slightly above eye level of the subject. She's standing there with her arm fully extended and it's like barely coming up to Tony's eyes.
Right.
Right? So right there, she should have either had him sit down, like sit on the grill of the patrol car, or have a taller officer do this test. Mm-hmm.
And there were 4 officers right there who were clearly able to do it. I don't know why.
I don't know why.
You know what I think it is? I think it's kind of a cop thing. It's like a fisherman. Oh, you got to let the person who caught the fish reel him in. It's kind of like I think cops are the same way. Hey, this is your arrest. You get to put the cuffs on Tony Romo. I mean, do you notice they let her do it? There were 5 of them, and they're like, no, you do it. You get the honors.
Yeah. Well, Tony's a big fish.
That's right.
That's something she's going to be telling her kids about.
Yeah, let me tell you about the time I arrested Tony Romo.
Right, and then we'll see if she gets to say, and then he got off scot-free or not.
Exactly.
But anyway, like the point is, there's a lot of, we could dive into the minutia of this, but there's things to attack here.
Now, I would say, in fairness, devil's advocate, let's call it both ways, like Tony Romo would do on a sportscast. He did fail to obey her instructions with regard to keeping his head still.
Yes.
One of the things that you're supposed to do, you can see this if you're watching on YouTube, but if not, I'm just looking straight forward and I'm tracking left and right with my eyes while keeping my head still. You're not supposed to turn your head and follow the stimulus. He kept doing that, which the prosecutor can say, look, he wasn't able to follow instructions because he was wasted. Right. She told him many times. Now, What she should have done also, though, is at some point she should have said, Mr. Romo, you need to keep your head still. She told him that one time, but she kept letting him do it.
She eventually started over and said, hey, you got to keep your head still, which was good because the test is completely useless if you're turning your head.
Right.
Right. All right. So then she jumps to the other two portions, which are the walk and turn and the one leg stand. And before we talk about how he did on there, let's put this into context. We have a former NFL player who has had multiple back surgeries, and he told the police throughout the contact.
He was clearly in discomfort the whole time. When he was getting out of the police car, he even said, my back.
Well, and for anyone who's never seen or sat in the back of a police car, they are tiny.
It's about the most uncomfortable position you have. You have no leg room.
You have no leg room, especially for a big guy.
They're trying to confine you into a very small space for their safety. I mean, they don't want to give you a lot of room to move around. A lot of room to move around.
This is for a person in perfect health. If you're taller or bigger, it's going to be very uncomfortable. So he gets out of there, like he's actually stretching.
It's hilarious, dude.
Really, it's worth watching.
I've never seen this before. I mean, they kind of allow him to like warm up and stretch before the roadside.
Almost like he's about to run.
I can't believe I've never seen that before. Like I can't believe in the hundreds of DUI cases that I've seen, I've never seen someone say, "Hey, can I just limber up real quick, man? I've been in this car for like 3 hours." And honestly, I was expecting them to, hey, just give me a football. Let me throw a football around here. Can you guys be my wide receiver? I might have to go in.
I'm happy to sign things too.
Right. But I mean, part of the SFST interview, to your point, they ask the offender, this happens everywhere, hey, have you ever had any injuries? Have you ever had any head injuries?
Right.
And Tony Romo absolutely says, yes, I've had multiple head injuries.
Right.
Nothing recent, he says.
Well, and by the way, there's something that potentially could be an issue with nystagmus.
Oh,
you
yeah.
have a head injury.
Of course.
Right? And they ask those questions because they're trying to screen out whether this is a medical issue or impairment.
Right.
Right?
Right.
All right, so the tests. So we get to it. One of them is the walk 9 steps on a line, turn around, walk 9 back, and the other one is stand on one leg, balancing for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the 2 remaining tests. So do they have him do the walk and turn on a line?
No, they don't. This is
It's bizarre.
odd.
It's bizarre.
So, the police officer gives a series of instructions, and I'll tell you, in this case, like Tony Romo asked a lot of clarifying questions.
Right,
it took forever to get through these roadsides.
He kept interrupting.
And so he was trying to understand the instructions, but one of the things that they have to have him do is you walk a line heel to toe, and the officer, they are allowed to use a real or an imaginary line, but when they can, they're encouraged to use a straight line so that you can objectively tell with body cam whether the person steps off it or misses heel to toe, etc. And they have all these painted lines all over the station.
He is literally enclosed by 2 straight lines.
And they have him walk on an area where there's no line, where it's an imaginary line. And we don't know if they're saying that he stepped off the line or not, but they're saying he failed the roadsides. One of the things is stepping on the line. Why they didn't actually have him walk the solid line is just beyond me.
He actually at one point walked over to the line to try to do it there, and
they
they're
said,
like,
no,
get
over here.
back to the middle, back to the middle.
And look, I think this is where I'm just going to tell you I have personal bias on these things. I think these are rigged carnival games. I think these are evidence of nothing. The assumption that law enforcement makes is that anybody who's sober should be able to pass these tests, whether you're a 23-year-old ballerina or a 76-year-old octogenarian. Or 86-year-old.
Septuagenarian.
You're way up there, yeah. But the idea is law enforcement is trained. Anybody can do these, and if they can't, they're not sober.
Right.
And that's just not the case. First of all, it's an unfair test, Russ. They don't tell you what they're looking for. They don't tell you. For example, one of the things that they penalize you for is if you step out of position while you are listening to the instructions, okay? So what Tony Romo was instructed to do, he's supposed to keep his arms at his side, put his right foot in front of his left, and he's supposed to stand there while listening to instructions. If he steps out of position, they say that's a clue of intoxication, even if the police officer doesn't tell him, hey, if you step out of position, I'm going to stop finding this is a clue of intoxication.
Yeah, they're
looking for a bunch of stuff that people don't realize.
Right. They don't tell you what's going to be a clue. Right. What's going to be something that, you know, it's scored on 0 to 8 clues on the walk and turn, and we don't know. Like, you can watch him do it, and you know, I don't know what they said about some of the clues.
He didn't do it perfectly, I can say that. I mean, first of all, he missed heel to toe on every step. He was not hitting heel to toe.
It was just right.
But he did seem to be walking normal.
Right.
I mean, it's not like he was staggering. He never really fell over. He kept his arms at his sides. You know, he did the turn more or less correctly, but he didn't do it perfectly. We're going to see how nitpicky they are with this.
We'll see. He stopped. That's a clue. He missed heel to toe. That's a clue. He did step out of the starting position. That's a clue. They're going to say he didn't turn correctly. The turn is this very awkward, specific, weird turn that nobody turns that way. So they're definitely going to say and be able to show that he didn't do this perfectly. But I think the defense is going to be able to say, hey, this was not evidence of impairment. This is evidence that he didn't understand all of the instructions.
Incidentally, I think it helps him overall that he asked so many questions to understand the instructions. I think that's evidence of a person's sobriety. Now, they can say, well, he kept asking questions because he was confused and couldn't understand because he was intoxicated. So it goes both ways.
Right.
So finally, the last field sobriety test is the one-leg stand, which is exactly what it sounds like. You stand on one leg for 30 seconds. You're supposed to keep your arms at your side. You're supposed to count out loud. You're supposed to look down at your foot, and you can't put your foot down. Now, again, you're not told any of those things.
You're told to do all that.
But you're not told that if you fail to do any of those steps are going to be signs of intoxication.
Right.
And I will say, of the 3 roadsides, I would say this is the one that gave him the most problems. He could not hold his leg up for the whole time. He stepped down a couple times.
Arms were up from the very start.
Yeah. So, I mean, it looked like he had a hard time balancing. So, let's talk about his status as an athlete, Russ, because I think this is important.
Right.
If I'm a prosecutor, I'm going to say, you know what? This absolutely is evidence of impairment. We're talking about an athlete here.
We're talking about pro bowl athlete.
I mean, first of all, he was a quarterback for years and years, arguably Hall of Fame credentials. But we also know that he's a golfer, a really good one at that. Like, he was just in a golf tournament. He's now saying he can't walk straight. He's now saying he can't lift one leg up and stand. He even told the cops, by the way, I do this every day.
Right.
I think he might have been referring to like a yoga tree pose or something.
Yeah, who's doing
something. The prosecutor can use his status as an athlete against him. Now, what's the counter to that?
Counter to that is, this is a guy who was in the NFL for season after season, who had who knows how many injuries, who we know had multiple surgeries.
Played quarterback, the most vulnerable position there is, right?
Of course he's not going to be able to do these things perfectly. He is banged up. Like, I mean, little side story, right when I first moved to Denver, which was, 26 years ago, this is not that long after Elway retired, John Elway. I was at a bar, and Elway walked into that bar looking for someone. He had a cane, and he looked like he could barely walk.
Right.
And, like, that is a guy who was probably younger than Tony Romo right now.
Yeah.
And
this is well documented. These guys have serious struggles after the NFL, after their playing days are over, and it seems clear that he was in a lot of discomfort.
Right.
So you're right. I think that is the counter, and I think it's effective.
Yeah.
So Russ, let's wrap up here. So basically, after they do put him through roadsides, they cuff him again.
Recuff him.
They recuff him. They rearrest him, is what I would say, because he was already arrested. And they charge him with OWI. We are unclear if there was a blood test in this case. Now, we know he refused testing, and he made a comment there. He said, I just have heard from lawyers, don't ever do the test.
Right.
What the police can do, and what we don't have any, we don't know if this happened or not.
We think they did do this.
We don't know if they went and got a warrant for his blood, because they can do that if at this point, if they,
we know they got a warrant. We don't know if they got the blood.
Right.
So we know that, so at that point he says, nope, I'm refusing. Lawyers have always told me not to cooperate. Law enforcement can basically write up a probable cause statement and send it to a judge and say, hey judge, we want you to authorize a warrant, and a judge signs off on it, then they can go and actually get blood without consent.
Right.
We know they started that process. We don't know if they finished that process.
Yes. So we'll see. If they don't have blood, we obviously don't know what the blood result would show.
Right.
But I would think that this case is better without a blood result.
You would think so.
If he comes back over, I guess we'll see what the blood comes back at.
Yeah.
So I guess let's end on this, Russ. Predictions. Predictions with what is going to happen with this case based on what we know now.
So based on what we have right now, I think this is a really, really defensible case. I think that a defense attorney would have a good time with this one. I think a prosecution is going to have a hard time convincing a jury that Tony Romo was under the influence. Now, this could change if we get a blood result back that comes back over the limit, right? That could change. I'd have to know a lot more to make an assessment at that point. But right now, even if this is assuming everything comes in, I think it's going to be a not guilty. And I think you still have a motions issue where you can ask a judge, say, hey judge, kick this whole case because they didn't have probable cause to arrest in the first place.
Yes, they arrested him too prematurely. So Russ, I think I agree with that. The one thing that we're always on the lookout for is a prosecutor that maybe wants to get some attention and who maybe wants to take a harder line on this and say, look, we go after drunk drivers in our jurisdiction. We don't care what your name is. We don't care what network you work for. We're doing this, and we believe the law was violated. We're putting this in front of a jury. You could go that route.
Yeah.
We've seen plenty of DAs go that route in high-profile cases. I'll be honest with you. If I am the district attorney and I am overseeing this prosecution, I am looking at this with some level of concern. Yeah. I'm looking at this saying, gosh, I really don't even know if we can meet the probable cause standard. I don't know if this is what we want to fight. I might be quietly reaching out to Romo's defense team to say, okay, how can we resolve this thing?
Well, that's the next question. Like, what does Tony Romo do?
Right.
Because
I was waiting for this discussion.
Yeah, right. Because you're sitting here, you are a national figure. You're bringing in, I don't know how many millions of dollars his contract is.
He's well paid. I mean, it's a lot.
It's a lot, right? And so the question, you often see guys get into trouble, and what they are advised to do by their PR team is, hey, accept responsibility, put out an apology, just
people forget. It's a first-time offense,
and just move on.
And that'll settle the network down. That they don't have to worry about standing by you through a lengthy legal proceeding.
Right.
I agree, Russ. I think the easiest PR move is to accept responsibility, plead guilty quickly, and just kind of hope that the rest of your amazing legacy overshines this one little blemish.
And it probably would.
Yeah.
But that's if you're guilty.
Yeah, and I mean, if I'm Tony Romo's lawyer, I don't think I'm advising him that route here.
Yeah.
I think I'm saying, Tony, I think it's important to say, I don't see anything from like a PR perspective that was super damaging here. No. He's not overly intoxicated. He never pulled rank.
Right.
In fact, I would argue he went out of his way to not do that.
Yeah.
He kept his composure, and he looks somewhat sympathetic here.
Yeah.
I pulled up the YouTube video of his arrest. I was amazed at the comment section. Most of the comments were directed toward negative comments toward the officer, Colin or a rookie, saying that there's no teeth here, that that Tony Romo shouldn't have been arrested, that he's innocent.
I feel like it was about 75-25.
Yeah.
Where 25 said, hey, it's simple, don't drink and drive.
Well, and there's a little bit of he's a rich guy, so of course he's going to get off. There's that kind of sentiment too. The rest of us would get screwed, but the people who can afford $1 million lawyers are fine.
Right. And there's always clickbait out there. I saw one of the videos was up there, and it was labeled, this is what the video was named, glassy-eyed Tony Romo, all caps, crawls on floor as he, all caps, fails cop sobriety test. And look, the crawling on floor was a freeze frame when he was doing his stretching.
I gotta say, I applaud that headline because I think technically it's accurate. Everything in that is 100% true.
Right?
I mean, but Yeah,
But it's
right.
funny how you can spin things, right? It can be spun any way. It just can.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if I finished my prediction. I predict this case will not go to trial. I predict he will not have to plead guilty to an impaired driving offense. I do think maybe it gets pled to something where he has to plead guilty to a non-alcohol related offense.
Okay.
Maybe
right.
speeding or something
Careless
like that.
driving
Yeah,
or
maybe
something
something
like
like that. But
Okay.
I don't think he's going down on impaired driving. And if I were his lawyer, I would say let's hold fast here and fight this thing.
Let's tee this one up for, since you were just coming off the golf course, Tony.
I can't wait, Jim. Can't wait, Jim. Can't wait to see this contest, Jim. Oh, we could be a play-by-play coordinator for his trial.
Totally could.
Yeah,
That'd be fun.
See, yeah, we should. Okay, so I think that is enough of Tony Romo. That means it's time for something else. It's time for something on the sillier side, on the lighter side.
Time for some dumb criminals.
The dumb criminal of the week.
Alright, so this, for any new listeners, is when we go through and we pick out a local or national or global dumb criminal, and you guys get to rate this guy, and we rate him on 1 to 5 knuckleheads.
That's right.
Alright, so today, Colin, we are going to Miami Township, Ohio. So we're going to...
I always think it's funny that there's a Miami of Ohio.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys must be really defensive about the much cooler Miami down on the water. I mean,
funny, super funny, quick side story. So my son was looking at potential colleges, and, Miami of Ohio was on his list of potential schools until he realized it's not actually in Miami. It immediately
moved
was
right
off the
down the
list.
priority list. That just fell from number 1 to number 8.
It was pretty funny. He's like, oh, it's not in Miami? No.
Darn, that was one of my fail safes.
Right, no, it's not. All right, but so the Miami Township Police were called to a local Kroger grocery store on reports of a shoplifter, Colin.
Okay.
They quickly identified the involved car, and they found it, and the police attempted to pull the car over. The car did pull over, but once it pulled over, immediately a passenger, one Kamal O'Berry, jumped out and fled on foot. There's actually a great video of a cop chasing him doing like a front endo, like tripping on grass.
The cop or the suspect?
The cop.
Okay.
But the suspect ran to Interstate 75, so I-75,
Right.
big old road, where he jumped on a hood of a moving car on the interstate. He cracked the windshield and then attempted to carjack the driver, Colin. However, he wasn't really in a position of power at that point. The driver just kind of slowed down slowly, pulled over, let the cops catch up, where Kamal was taken into custody. And instead of being charged with just simple petty theft, he was charged with aggravated robbery, theft, and obstruction.
As well as imitating Spider-Man.
which carries some serious
Are you saying,
penalty.
I want to make sure I'm getting this right. Are you saying, he's from an elevated position and jumps right down to the road and happens to land on a moving car?
On the side of the road, he runs and got speed up, and there was a car in the right lane.
And it's like Grand Theft Auto, he runs up next to him
and jumped on the hood and cracked the windshield. I assume the car, there's actually a video out there of him on top of on the hood, but I assume the car slowed down because it was afraid of hitting someone, and he just ran out and just dove onto the car. And the car, is still driving. Colin, after he broke the windshield, I think his comment was, "This shoplifting isn't all it's cracked up to be."
Russ, throughout this whole escapade, it seems like Mr. O'Beary here couldn't steer clear of trouble.
What I do know for sure is once he hopped on that car, the police investigation really shifted into high gear.
All right, that's good stuff. Knuckleheads. 5 for me. You took a not so terrible situation and made it into a 5 to 10 years in prison situation. I think.
Yeah, I'm going to give him 4.5, taking off half because of the really because he made that cop do the endo and front flip.
Oh,
and
okay.
He initially got
We
away.
like it when cops fall down.
Well, he got back. Like the cop was fine. It was actually a good landing.
Okay.
Like, it was kind of impressive.
Right.
That he did the flip and then landed back on.
It's
his
one of
feet.
those things. Are you okay?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm not rooting for cops to get hurt. So, 9.5, Mr. O'Berry.
You remember the cop who went down the slide in Boston? He was shot out of the bottom, like he just lost all of his stuff.
No.
It was a viral video.
No.
I think people know what I'm talking about. That was funny too. It's the same, probably the same. It's
Same-
funny when
same
cops
idea.
kind of fall down.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I love cops, but
Yeah.
when they fall down.
Yeah.
All right. We'll call that a podcast, I think.
Just reach out. Any platform you can
Text
find
us. That's the easiest.
You can text
Right
us.
there in the podcast description, say send us a text. Let us know what you think of the show. Give us an idea if you got something.
Give us a 5-star review. Pass us along to family and friends, and we'll see you next time.
Right here on Is This Legal? Bye-bye.